Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Dan Blanchard with the Traveling Time with Dan show. Today I'm in Boston at the Castle Island Fort Independence, 1634. This is the oldest continuous fortified site in British North America. This has stood as a sentinel to the Boston Harbor since 1634. Again, the oldest continuous in North America, right? Pretty wild. So this fort used to be called Castle William back in 1776 when the evacuation took place by the British, when we put all those cannons up on the top of Dorchester Heights, ran the British out of Boston in 1776. The English didn't want us to have this. So what the English did was they destroyed this fort on their way out of town, right? To go to Nova Scotia and eventually to, back to New York, okay? So there's a really cool history of like this oldest continuous fort here. One of the things is there was a guy, right, named Prince Hall, right? He was a black guy that was here, and he was English, and some of the Irish were here, and the Irish, they initiated him into the Freemasonry. So the Black Freemasonry of America began here at Castle Island, Fort Independence, way back, right? I think it was 1775. Began in America, began right here. Now, with the war, I should say, let me back up. When the British decided to destroy this on the way out, right? You had your guy, our famous American guy, Paul Revere, known as Lieutenant Colonel Paul Revere. He was placed in charge, right? Now you remember he was like a silversmith. Later on he'd do the copper sheets. He was placed in charge here, and he was really good with cannons, making cannons and all that stuff. But he was placed in charge here to fix it up and to put it back online so they could use it, right? And when he was using it, building it back up, he changed the name, right, to Fort Independence. So Paul Revere gives it the name of Fort Independence, right? And in the War of 1812, this was very, very important in the War of 1812, right? Because the British would have to sail by this to go into Boston, and they didn't let them. We didn't let them, okay? The War of 1812, this fort actually saw no action at all because it was such a powerful deterrent against the British, and the British didn't want to go and get shot up from our cannons here, so they kind of left Boston alone, all right? That was the War of 1812, very, very important for us. 1812 was going to be very different than the 1776 war, all right? Now, there was a guy, Colonel Sylvanus Thayer. He's the father of West Point. He's the one that took this brick and like mud and earthens work, and he turned it into this huge granite fort that you see right now, all right? He's the guy that did that, the father of West Point, okay? So, again, this was like brick, it was like earthworks, mud, all that stuff. And now look at it today, this huge granite fort, bastions, all right? That's diamond-shaped at the corner so that you get flanking fire, so that there's no area that's protected to people trying to climb up the walls, right? Every single one of them could be easily shot up from the flanking fire at this type of fort. And if you look right over there, you're going to see the water, right? This is built at the narrow part of the Boston Harbor. So again, any boats, particularly British boats in 1812, any British boats trying to come up the water here are going to get shot up by our cannons. So they were like, no thank you. I don't think I want to do that. And they left Boston alone, which is pretty much probably one of the only major cities that the British left alone in 1812. Right? That deterrent thing is a very, very powerful thing. Okay, this is still here in 1860s in the Civil War. It's not really seeing action, right? But the Massachusetts, it's like a state-of-the-art training ground for the Massachusetts militia during the Civil War. And have you ever heard of a guy named Edgar Allan Poe? Yes, when he was 18 years old, he was in a lot of debt. So he came here, told him he was 22, gave him a fake name, maybe so his creditors couldn't find him. And supposedly while he was here, he heard a story about a soldier being murdered and buried deep in the fort, and then a wall was put up. And of course, nobody could hear him screaming, and he died here. Some people say that maybe Edgar Allan's book, The Cask of Amontillado, was based on Edgar Allan Poe's time here at Fort Independence here on Castle Island. So some people say, I don't know, but then people say, yeah, I think so. Now in 1928, right, due to the Boston's land filling in, they needed more land. 1928, this was actually connected to the mainland. It's no longer an island. It was actually connected to the mainland through like a causeway that they built. Again, Boston looks very different today than it did way, way back in the Revolutionary times, War of 1812 times, all that sort of stuff. And this place is pretty famous. I mean, you ever hear of a game called Fallout for Universe, post-apocalyptic game? Well, yeah, this is in it, right? Fort Independence is in it. It's called the Castle instead of Fort Independence, but it is Fort Independence. And some of you guys might have heard of Frederick Law Olmsted, right? They say that a lot of this park around here, the design was influenced by Frederick Law Olmsted. Right? He did Central Park in New York City, a whole bunch of others. And what else you need to know? How about this? This is the 8th fort that's been built on this site. And today, this is a living monument, right, with the famous Sullivan food stand. That's right, they got great food, great ice cream over there. So if you're ever down here, be sure and come and check out not just the Castle Island, not just the fort, but definitely check out Sullivan's food stand and ice cream if you come down here. So when I do my shows of Travel in Time with Dan, where I mix travel with history and with leadership, and of course me, Dan Blanchard, I like to throw in some leadership, right? So, I mean, the travel is pretty obvious. Travel down there, check it out. Leadership, I'm going to tell you in a second. History, I've already given you a bunch. So what is the leadership? Well, I would say the leadership is this. Great leaders think about prevention, not only reaction. Great leaders also think about prevention, right? So think about this. I have a question for you. Is the best leadership visible during emergencies or invisible because the problems never happen? I don't know about you, but problems never happening kind of sounds good, right? Well, anyways, thank you for spending some time with me today on the Travel in Time with Dan show, where we mix travel with history, with leadership, and of course me, Dan Blanchard. And I'll be back again real soon with another great episode on something else. Until then, take care.